On a cold spring morning in the middle of the 12th century, the leader of a Mongol tribe located not far from the border of Siberia welcomes his newborn child into the world. Little did he and his wife know then that this child would become one of the most ruthless and great conquerors in history. This fierce warrior would found the greatest empire in the world, the Mongol Empire. He would stop at nothing to achieve his goals, even if it meant wiping out some of the tribes in Northeast Asia. At the height of his power, Genghis Khan was an unstoppable force, and his armies ravaged some of the most powerful kingdoms of the age. For centuries, historians have struggled to explain in detail how the Mongol tribes transformed from clans of nomadic cattlemen and warriors into perhaps the greatest unified army of its age, waging large-scale military campaigns thousands of miles from their homeland. As research progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that a single figure is behind it all. This was the irrepressible Genghis Khan, whom the Mongols viewed as a god. There are many uncertainties surrounding the birth and early life of the legendary Genghis Khan. According to most sources we have, he was born in 1162 and named Temujin after a Tatar chieftain whom his father Yesugei had captured. Yesugei was a tribal chief of a Mongol tribe of the Borjigin clan and a descendant of the revered Habul Khan, who in the early 1100s succeeded in uniting the Mongols to wage war against the Qin-Jin dynasty in northern China, though the unification did not last long. The young Temujin had to live with the high expectations his ancestry carried. Nevertheless, he seemed destined for greatness from an early age. According to legends taken from the secret history of the Mongols, Temujin was born with a blood clot on his arm, a sign in Mongol folklore that he was destined to become a leader. During Temujin's primitive years, his mother, Hoelun, revealed to him the harsh truth of life in the turbulent Mongol tribal society and the importance of forming alliances. At an early age, the young man was sent to live with the family of his future fiancée, Borte. His father personally took him to them, but on the way back, Yesugei met some Tatars who invited him to a supposedly conciliatory feast. They then committed an act of treason and poisoned the leader of the Borjigin clan. When Temujin heard of his father's death, he returned to his tribe. He was filled with sadness and anger and intended to take the place of leader. However, the young Mongol faced a new misfortune as the Borjigin clan refused to accept him as their chief. Instead, he and his entire family were labeled as weak and were expelled from the clan. They were left alone, becoming something like refugees, rejected and humiliated. The following years were extremely difficult for Temujin and his family. As the rival Taichut family held power, they were forced to live in extreme poverty, eating roots and fish instead of the lamb and mare's milk common to nomads. The pressure on the family grew and led to many quarrels between them. During one hunting trip, Temujin even killed his half-brother during a dispute over the spoils, thus establishing himself as the head of the family. But he was still a long way from the conqueror known to the world as Genghis Khan, and young Temujin had to go through much turmoil before eventually succeeding in uniting the Mongol world. Despite being rejected, Temujin and his family managed to retain a certain level of prestige as members of the royal Borjigin clan. This allowed the young Mongol to claim the wife that had been promised to him before his father's death. When he turned 16, he finally married Borte. This was a turning point for him and his family, as it allowed the future Khan to begin forming an army. Soon after their marriage, Borte was captured by the rival Merkit tribe and offered as a wife to one of their chieftains. Temujin, however, managed to rescue his wife, and the two eventually had at least 4 children. When Temujin was 20 years old, he was captured by his former allies during a raid and enslaved for a period of time. Fate turns out to be on his side, however, as a sympathetic captor later frees him and joins him along with his brothers and his clansmen, forming a fighting unit. Temujin's rise was a slow and arduous process, but he eventually created a large army of 20,000 strong Mongols, of which he was commander. During his rise, he had 2 main goals: to destroy the traditional divisions between the various tribes and unite the Mongols under his rule, and to avenge the death of his father. Temujin achieved considerable success on the battlefield through a combination of exceptional military tactics and ruthless cruelty. The warrior led his army against the Tatars, seeking revenge for the murder of his father years before. In the course of this conflict, Temujin began to build a reputation as a cruel and ruthless warrior, destroying the Tatar army without taking prisoners. After defeating most of the Tatar forces, he ordered all male Tatars who were taller than approximately 90 centimeters or 3 feet, at the time he defined them as taller than the axle of a cartwheel, to be killed. The Mongol chief then turned his army's attention to the Taichiut, and in a series of cavalry charges again defeated that army as well. To make the humiliation even greater, Temujin ordered all the Taichiut chieftains to be boiled alive. Over the next few years, Temujin and his growing army continued to conquer neighboring tribes, and by 1206 they had complete control of central and eastern Mongolia. The success of the Mongol army under Temujin's command was due to his exceptional military tactics and his ability to understand the motivations of his enemies. He used an extensive spy network and quickly absorbed any new technology his men learned from enemy forces. In the early 13th century, the well-trained Mongol army consisted of about 80,000 fighters. They coordinated their attacks using a sophisticated signal system of smoke and burning torches. Others used large drums to give instructions to attack, and further orders were relayed by flag signals. Every soldier under Temujin's command was equipped with a bow, arrows, shield, dagger, and lasso. They also carried large saddlebags for food, tools, and spare clothing. The saddlebag was waterproof and could be inflated to serve as a lifebelt when crossing deep and fast-moving rivers, demonstrating the ingenuity of the army in providing everything needed for long expeditions across the Asian lands. The horsemen carried a small sword, spears, armor, a battle axe or mace, and a spear with a hook, which allowed them to throw enemy riders off their horses. When they attacked, the Mongols devastated the enemy forces. One major component of their success was due to their use of horses. The warriors could steer a galloping horse with only their legs, leaving their hands free to fire a lance. The entire army was followed by a well-organized supply system with ox carts that carried food for both soldiers and animals, as well as military equipment, shamans for spiritual and medical aid, and officials to catalog the spoils. Temujin went on to subjugate many rival Mongol tribes to his command using brute force. Eventually, many of the tribal chiefs came together and accepted terms of peace, after which they gave Temujin the title Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. His new title had not only great political significance, but also considerable spiritual value. One revered shaman declared Genghis Khan to be the representative of Monke Koko Tengri, or Eternal Blue Sky, the supreme god of the Mongols. With this divine title, Genghis Khan accepted that it was his destiny to rule the whole world, and according to legend, he is supposed to have said the following to one of his enemies: "I am the whip of God. If you had not committed such great sins, God would not have sent you punishment like me." Wasting no time, Genghis Khan set out to fulfill his destiny, and in 1207 started a war with the Xixia kingdom. Less than 2 years later, he forced the kingdom to surrender. He then turned his army's attention to the greater Jin dynasty in northern China. However, Genghis Khan's army did not go there to seek gold or jewels. Instead, their goal was to conquer the endless rice fields that would feed the growing Mongol population. Although it took them 2 decades to complete their conquest of the Jin dynasty, the Mongols simultaneously headed west and eventually found themselves in all-out conflict against the Khwarezm dynasty, a Turk-dominated empire that included Turkestan, Persia, and Afghanistan. During a diplomatic mission, a Mongol was attacked by the governor of Otrar, who was under the impression that Genghis Khan had sent a spy. Later, the leader of the Khwarezm dynasty, Shah Muhammad, refused to return the diplomat, preferring to behead the Mongol and send his head to Genghis Khan. This, however, turned out to be a grave mistake for which he would later bitterly regret. This act unleashed an unprecedented fury that destroyed Central Asia and Eastern Europe. In 1219, Genghis Khan personally took control of the planning and execution of a 3-pronged attack with 200,000 Mongol soldiers against the Khwarezm dynasty. The Mongols swept every city with ease, showing no mercy whatsoever and demonstrating unstoppable cruelty. Those who were not slaughtered on the spot were used as human shields when the next city was attacked. Nothing was spared by Genghis Khan's forces, not even small domestic animals and livestock. The skulls of men, women, and children were piled in great pyramidal heaps. a horrific sight one cannot even imagine, showing the brutal nature of the Mongol leader. Cities were brought to their knees one after another, and eventually Shah Muhammad, and later his son, were captured and killed, ending the Khwarezm dynasty in 1221. After the destruction of this dynasty, Genghis Khan was forced to turn his attention back to the Tanguts of Shishya. They openly rebelled against him and refused to send troops to help in the war against the Khwarezm dynasty. In response, he again led his army into China, sacked all the major Tangut cities, and ordered the imperial family executed, ending the Tangut lineage. Genghis Khan sincerely believed that he was God's incarnate and took every possible step to conquer the known world. At its peak, Genghis Khan's Mongol Empire encompassed an area of some 23-31 million square kilometers, 9-12 million square miles, making it the largest continuous land empire in history. But, like everyone else, he was ultimately just a man. The ruthless leader is believed to have died around 1227, shortly after putting down Shishya's rebellion. The exact cause of his death remains a mystery to this day. Some historians suggest that he fell from a horse while hunting and later died from his injuries. Others say he died of a respiratory illness. Nevertheless, Genghis Khan was buried without any specific markings according to the customs of his tribe, somewhere near his birthplace, not far from the Onon River and the Khenti Mountains in northern Mongolia. According to legend, the funeral escort killed everyone and everything they encountered on their way to hide the location of Genghis Khan's grave, and a river was diverted above it so that it could not be found. To this day, the exact burial site of the infamous Mongol leader remains a mystery, but the story of his cruel and ruthless rise to power continues to echo through time. Centuries after this story, there would emerge another ruthless warlord whose biography horrifies us today no less than that of Genghis Khan. Whether influenced by the story of the great Mongol ruler or a villain at heart, Napoleon Bonaparte became the bogeyman of Europe. Ruthless, unscrupulous, and fond of bloodshed, he fought simultaneous battles on several fronts and brought Europe to its knees. But more on this story in the video you see to the left of your screens.